I got revenge on my ex by becoming her best friend's boyfriend, and I fell in love. I've always believed that revenge is a dish best served cold, but no one tells you what happens when the meal goes rancid in your own stomach. It started with an invitation I should have ignored. My ex, Claire, texted me one night out of nowhere. The notification lit up my phone like a flare over a shipwreck. I should have thrown it into the ocean and gone to sleep. Instead, I opened it. Hey stranger. There's a party at my place Friday. You should come by. Stranger. As if she hadn't left me sitting on a park bench for 2 hours while she figured out what she wanted. Spoiler, what she wanted was a guy named Derek with a jawline sharp enough to slice deli meat and a trust fund fat enough to keep her in free cocktails for life. I stared at her message so long my phone dimmed. Part of me, the rational part, knew she was baiting me. The other part, the pathetic, curious, pride-scorched part, typed back, sure. See you then. I told myself I was just going for closure. Maybe I'd show up looking devastatingly good, drop a few witty barbs, and remind her what she gave up. Maybe I'd even hook up with someone in her bathroom just to spite her. Yes, I was that petty back then. I wish I could say I'm not still that petty now. Friday came fast. I spent more time than I'd like to admit picking out an outfit that said, I'm better off without you. Without screaming, I spent 2 hours trying to look like I don't care. I settled on dark jeans, a black button-up, and that cologne Claire once said made me smell dangerous. If she wanted danger, I give her an overdose. The party was exactly what I expected, Claire's laugh echoing off the walls, her new boyfriend Derek radiating pure himbo energy in designer sneakers, a smattering of our old mutual friends pretending not to notice the tension. I grabbed a beer and posted up near the balcony door, giving myself an easy escape route. And that's when I saw her, the best friend. Her name was Lila. She'd always been Claire's shadow, the quiet one, the loyal sidekick. Back when Claire and I were still together, Lila would come over and sip wine with us, always polite, always a little too reserved for my taste. She had this way of folding in on herself, like she didn't want to take up any space Claire hadn't given her permission to occupy. But that night, that night, Lila wasn't folding herself up at all. She was unfolding, blooming right there in Claire's living room like a flower that finally found the sun. Her hair was longer, darker, curling down her back. She wore a deep green dress that made her look like spring wrapped in silk. She caught me staring and raised an eyebrow. I raised my beer back at her, a silent salute. She smirked. That was the moment the idea slithered into my head. If Claire wanted to flaunt her new man in front of me, fine. I'd do her one better. I'd get close to her best friend. Close enough that Claire couldn't ignore it. Close enough to make her wonder if I'd always wanted Lila more. Revenge, sweet and juvenile, just the way I liked it. I found Lila in the kitchen later, pouring herself some cheap wine from a box. She didn't flinch when I slipped in next to her. Fancy seeing you here, I said, with all the forced casualness of a guy who'd been rehearsing this moment in his head all night. She snorted. It's Claire's house. I think I'm contractually obligated. You look different, I said, trying not to sound like I'd spent half the party watching her. Different good or different bad? Good. Definitely good. She took a sip of her wine and studied me over the rim. You here to make a scene? Is it that obvious? You look like a guy about to light a match just to watch something burn. I laughed, and it felt realer than it should have. Maybe I am. She leaned against the counter, close enough that I caught the faintest hint of her perfume, something soft, floral, nothing like Claire's aggressive vanilla cloud. Well, if you're gonna start a fire, try not to burn the kitchen down. I actually like this place. I don't know if it was the way she said it, or the way her lips curved around her wine glass, but I heard myself say, "Want to help me ruin her night?" She tilted her head, considering me like I was a puzzle she wasn't sure she wanted to solve. What did you have in mind? I shrugged. Dance with me. Talk to me all night. Make her wonder. Lila laughed, a soft, musical thing that cut through the bass thumping from the living room. You're unbelievable, but effective. She rolled her eyes, but she didn't say no. She downed the rest of her wine, set the glass on the counter with a decisive little click, and said, Fine. Let's give the queen something to gossip about. And just like that, the match was struck. We walked back into the party together, close enough that our shoulders brushed. I didn't even bother to look at Claire. I didn't need to. I could feel her eyes burning holes in my back. I told myself this was it. Just a petty, fleeting stunt to scratch an itch. I didn't know then that the fire I'd lit would spread to places I couldn't control. That the girl I'd pulled into my revenge plot would turn out to be the best and worst thing that ever happened to me. But that's the thing about matches. They never think about what they're about to ignite. And I was about to watch my own life go up in flames. If you've ever tried to ruin someone's night by pretending you're over them, here's a tip. Don't pick their best friend to do it with, unless you're ready for collateral damage you can't undo. Lila and I moved through Claire's living room like we owned the place. We danced in that awkward, too slow, too close way that's less about the music and more about the message. I could feel Claire's stare like a tack pressed into my spine every time Lila's laugh drifted above the thumping bass. If Lila noticed, she didn't say a word. She just kept leaning in closer, like we were sharing secrets instead of a bottle of bad wine and a mutual grudge. At some point, we ended up on the balcony. It was quieter out there, just the distant hum of traffic and the muffled heartbeat of the party behind a glass door. Lila leaned on the railing, her hair catching the wind, her eyes shining with something I couldn't quite name. "You know she's going to kill me for this," she said, not looking at me. "Probably," I said. "But she'll forgive you. She always does." Lila barked out a laugh, short, sharp. "You really don't get it, do you? Enlighten me." "She doesn't forgive me. She uses me. She collects my apologies like trophies." I didn't know what to say to that, so I said nothing. Lila turned to face me, crossing her arms, the city lights flickering behind her like a broken marquee. "You think I'm her best friend?" she asked. "I'm just her audience. Not tonight." She tilted her head, studying me again with that same puzzle-solving squint. "So what are we doing then? Really?" I took a step closer. The air between us felt heavy, charged, like the static before a storm. "We're giving her something to talk about." Lila snorted. "And after tonight? What then? We go back to ignoring each other." I wanted to say yes. That was the plan. Use her, make Claire squirm, then disappear back into my petty little cave. But the way Lila was looking at me made me hesitate. She didn't look like a prop. She looked like a person I'd never bothered to really see before. "I don't know," I admitted. "What do you want to happen?" She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "I want a lot of things I shouldn't want." "Yeah," I said. "Me too." And then she kissed me. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't soft. It was a kiss that tasted like old grudges and cheap wine and the thrill of doing something so obviously stupid that neither of us could pretend we weren't enjoying it. Her hands tangled in my shirt. Mine gripped the railing behind her like I needed an anchor. When we finally pulled apart, we both looked back through the balcony door at the party. Claire was there, frozen in the middle of her living room, Derek droning in her ear while her eyes drilled into us like we were bugs under glass. Lila smirked, breathless. "Well," she saw. "Good," I said. But I didn't feel good. I felt like I'd just stepped onto a tightrope over a canyon I hadn't noticed until now. We left the party together because at that point, why not? I drove her home in my beat-up Corolla, both of us pretending we weren't thinking about what would happen next. She invited me in, and I almost laughed at how easy it all was. Revenge was supposed to be hard, messy, complicated, but this felt like falling into a warm bed after a bad dream. Her apartment was tiny but clean, a rented shoebox that smelled like lavender and faintly of paint. She kicked off her shoes, dropped her purse, and turned to face me like she was daring me to back out. I didn't. We didn't talk much that night. We didn't need to. It wasn't tender or romantic. It was messy, a collision of two people trying to forget someone else. When it was over, we lay there tangled in sheets that smelled like her shampoo and the sweat we hadn't bothered to wash off. "You know this is a terrible idea, right?" she murmured into the dark. "Best terrible idea I've had in years." She laughed softly, her fingers tracing lazy shapes on my chest. "She's going to hate us." Let her. I wanted to believe it was that simple, that we were just two idiots poking a hornet's nest for fun. But the way Lila's head fit perfectly in the crook of my shoulder made my chest ache in a way I didn't want to examine too closely. The next morning should have been awkward, should have been full of excuses and half-hearted jokes about bad decisions. But it wasn't. We made coffee. We ate stale cereal from a chip bowl we passed back and forth like teenagers. She played some indie band I'd never heard of while we sat on her couch, knees bumping, pretending we weren't planning our next disaster. When I finally left, she walked me to the door, her hair a mess, her eyes soft in a way I'd never seen. She pressed her lips to mine one more time, gentler now, sweeter, and said, "Don't ghost me, okay?" Wouldn't dream of it. But the truth was, I wanted to. Part of me knew I should. If I'd had any sense at all, I would have blocked her number the second I got in my car. But when my phone buzzed with her name an hour later, had fun last night. Let's do it again sometime. I felt something stupid and warm spread through my chest. I told myself it was just the thrill of the game, that it didn't mean anything, that we were still playing Claire's petty little stage play. I should have known better. I really, really should have known. If you'd asked me back then, I'd have said I was in control, that I knew exactly what I was doing, using Lila to scratch an old itch, to pick at Claire's ego until it bled. I would have said it with a straight face, too. Because that's what you do when you're an idiot with a bruised heart. You lie, mostly to yourself. The next few weeks turned into a routine I never planned for. Lila and I started meeting up in all the places we knew Claire might hear about. We'd run into each other accidentally at bars where our old circle hung out. We'd grab dinner and make sure to sit on the same side of the booth, leaning into each other like we were already a story worth whispering about. Once, we even went to this tiny dive bar where Claire's coworker tended bar. I could practically taste the gossip on that girl's lips before we'd even ordered our drinks. We didn't talk about what we were doing. We didn't have to. We both knew. And yet, sometimes, in those quiet moments, when Lila was laughing at one of my bad jokes or tracing circles on the back of my hand while we waited for the check, it didn't feel like revenge. It felt like something else. Something dangerously soft. One night, we were at this overpriced tapas place downtown, the kind of place with tiny plates and big egos. Lila was picking at her food, twisting her hair around her finger while she half listened to me rant about my job. "Are you even hearing me?" I asked, finally. She blinked, coming back to earth. "What? Yeah, your boss is an ass. Sorry. You've barely touched your food. You okay?" She looked at me then, really looked, and I swear something flickered across her face. Guilt. Maybe. Or fear. "Do you ever think about her?" she asked. "Claire." She nodded, eyes dropping to her wine glass. "Yeah, Claire." I leaned back in my chair, suddenly wishing I'd ordered something stronger than beer. "What do you mean? We're literally doing this because of her." "I know," she said. "But do you ever think about how she's going to feel when she finds out it's not a game?" I froze. "What makes you think it's not a game?" Lila's laugh was small and sad. "Come on. We keep pretending it's just revenge, but you're here with me every night. You text me good morning. You kiss me like you mean it." I hated that she said it out loud. It made it real in a way I wasn't ready for. I wanted to tell her she was wrong, that I'd drop her in a heartbeat if it meant Claire would feel even a fraction of what I'd felt on that park bench, but the lie stuck to my tongue like tar. "I don't know what this is," I said finally, "but I know it's not supposed to be serious." She flinched, like I'd slapped her. But then she nodded, forced a smile, and flagged down the waiter for the check. She didn't cry. Lila never cried, at least not in front of me. When we got back to her place, I expected her to send me home. Instead, she pulled me inside without a word. We didn't talk while we stripped each other down. We didn't talk while we moved like we were trying to erase the conversation we just had. After, she lay half on top of me, her breath warm against my chest. "You're going to break my heart, aren't you?" she murmured into the dark. I wanted to say no. God, I wanted to say no so badly it made my teeth hurt. But the truth sat between us, heavy and sour. "I don't want to," I whispered. She didn't say anything back. She just pressed her lips to my collarbone like she was branding me with her silence. A few days later, the bomb dropped. Claire called me. Not texted, called. Seeing her name light up my phone made my stomach flip in a way that felt both nostalgic and nauseating. I answered on the third ring, because of course I did. "Hey stranger," she said. Same line she'd used that first night. Full circle, I guess. "Hey," I said, trying to keep my voice neutral. "So, you and Lila, huh?" There it was. No preamble. No warm-up. Just straight to the jugular. I cleared my throat. "Yeah, I guess." "You guess. What do you want me to say, Claire?" She laughed, that brittle, glass-breaking laugh she used when she was pretending not to care. "I want you to say it's a joke. That you're not seriously fucking my best friend. It's not a joke." Silence. I could hear her breathing on the other end, sharp little inhales like she was trying not to scream. When she spoke again, her voice was sweet poison. "You know she's not like me, right? She's not built for your games." "I know," I said. And I did know. But I was too far in to crawl out now. "You're going to hurt her," Claire said, and for a second, I almost believed she cared. Almost. "Maybe," I said. "But that's not your problem anymore." She hung up on me. No goodbye. No explosion. Just a dead line humming in my ear. I sat there staring at my phone until Lila texted me. "Want to come over?" I typed yes before I could think about it. Because that's what cowards do. They run to the one place they know they shouldn't. That night, when I walked into Lila's apartment, she looked at me like she knew exactly what I'd done. What I was doing. But she didn't ask me to stop. She just kissed me like she wanted to pretend a little longer. And I let her. Because the worst lies are the ones you both want to believe. If you'd told me back then that I'd be the villain in someone else's love story, I'd have laughed. Villains were obvious, weren't they? Black hats, evil monologues, some dramatic exit stage left. But real life is quieter than that. More cowardly. Real villains say, "I didn't mean it," and somehow that makes it worse. A week after Claire's call, I was practically living at Lila's place. Not officially, of course. My toothbrush was still at my crappy apartment. My laundry piled up in the corner I called a bedroom. But my phone charger was at Lila's. So was my favorite hoodie, the one she liked to steal when she thought I was still asleep. We turned into something domestic without ever calling it that. She'd make coffee in the mornings while I pretended to check emails on my phone. She'd fall asleep on my chest during bad Netflix rom-coms I pretended to hate. She'd hum under her breath when she brushed her teeth, some old habit, some song I never recognized. One night, after one too many glasses of wine, she looked at me across her tiny living room like she was memorizing every line of my face. I hated when she looked at me like that, like she saw more than I wanted her to. "Tell me something true," she said, her voice soft, but her eyes sharp enough to cut me open. I laughed, because I didn't know what else to do. "What do you mean?" "I mean something real. Something that isn't about Claire. Something that's yours." I should have told her I didn't have anything like that left. Not really. But I reached for the first scrap I could find. When I was a kid, I said, picking at the label on my beer bottle, I wanted to be a pilot. She smiled, settling her chin on her knees. Yeah? Why didn't you? I flunked out of the one class that mattered. Couldn't pass the eye exam either. Turns out, it's hard to fly when you can't read the damn instruments. She laughed, but it was gentle, not mocking. So now you do what? Push paper for people who'd fire you if you died tomorrow. Pretty much. Lila leaned closer, her hair brushing my arm. That's sad. Yeah, well, life's sad, Lila. She was quiet for a second. Then, so softly I almost missed it. You're not. I didn't know what to do with that. So I kissed her instead. Because that's what I was good at. Using my mouth to stop people from asking questions I didn't want to answer. Things should have stayed at her place, our secret bubble, full of stolen mornings and half-truths. But life doesn't like secrets. It likes exposure. Humiliation. The slow peel of a scab you thought it healed. It was Lila's idea to go to the art show. One of her old college friends was exhibiting at some pretentious little gallery downtown. I said yes because I liked the way her eyes lit up when she talked about it. I told myself it would be harmless. Just a night out. Just another photo for Claire to stumble across on someone's story. I didn't expect Claire to be there. But of course she was. We were standing in front of some massive canvas that looked like someone had sneezed paint onto it, arguing about whether it was brilliant or bullshit, when I felt Lila stiffen beside me. I didn't even have to turn around to know. I felt Claire's presence the way you feel a storm rolling in. Wow, Claire's voice said behind us. Sweet as poison. Look at you too. So cultured. I turned. She looked exactly the same, flawless hair, smug little smile, Derek lurking behind her like a loyal golden retriever. I wondered if he knew she'd been calling me. Probably not. Claire never shared the parts of herself that made her look weak. Hi, Claire, Lila said. Her voice was steady, but her fingers dug into my palm like a threat or a plea. Maybe both. Claire's eyes flicked to our joined hands. This is cute. Seriously. Very rebellious of you, Lila. I could feel Lila's heartbeat in her grip, faster than mine. I opened my mouth to say let it go, Claire, but Lila beat me to it. You don't get to do that, she said, her voice low but sharp. You don't get to stand there and act like you didn't bring this on yourself. Claire laughed, flipping her hair back like she was on stage. Please. You think he actually wants you? You're just the aftertaste, honey. Lila flinched, but she didn't let go of my hand. I wish I could say I defended her, that I stepped forward, called Claire out, made some grand declaration about how she was wrong. But I didn't. I just stood there, tongue glued to my teeth, the coward in me screaming to keep the peace, to keep the lie alive. Claire's smile turned razor sharp. You know he's still in love with me, right? That did it. Lila let go of my hand like it burned her. Her eyes searched mine, desperate, pleading, waiting for me to say no, that's not true. But the words wouldn't come. Because part of me, the worst part, didn't know if it was a lie. Claire laughed again, spun on her heel, and dragged Derek away like a trophy she couldn't wait to polish. The room felt colder without her in it, like she'd sucked all the air out when she left. Lila stared at me, her eyes glassy but dry. Tell me she's wrong, she whispered. I opened my mouth, closed it, opened it again. Nothing. She stepped back, crossing her arms over her chest like she was holding herself together. Tell me who you're really with when you're with me. Lila, save it. She turned and walked away, weaving through the murmuring gallery crowd like she'd never even been standing beside me. I didn't follow her. I don't know why. Maybe because I knew what I'd see in her eyes if I did. The truth I'd been too much of a coward to say. If you've never watched someone walk away from you knowing they'll never come back, you might think it happens all at once, some dramatic slam of a door, a final word yelled through tears. But it doesn't. It happens in slow motion. A door closes softly. A message goes unanswered. A toothbrush you left behind ends up in the trash. A silence grows so big you can't squeeze anything true into it anymore. After Lila left me standing there in that gallery, I did what I always did when my world cracked open. Nothing. I didn't run after her. I didn't call her that night. Instead, I drove home with my chest hollowed out and my head buzzing with all the things I could have said and didn't. My apartment felt smaller than ever, four walls and a pile of dirty laundry mocking me from the corner. The bed felt colder than I remembered. The silence felt earned. The next morning, I stared at my phone for an hour before I typed, "Can we talk?" She didn't respond. By that evening, my need to feel like the good guy, even when I knew I wasn't, outweighed my pride. I called her. Straight to voicemail. I called again. Nothing. I told myself I'd give her space. But the truth is, space is just an excuse you give yourself when you're too much of a coward to show up on someone's doorstep and beg. 3 days later, I caved. I went to her apartment, same way I always did. Same stupid beat-up Corolla, same cracked stairwell with the peeling paint. I knocked. Nothing. I knocked again, harder this time. half hoping her neighbors would yell at me just so I could feel like I still existed in her world. Eventually, the door swung open. She stood there in sweatpants and an oversized hoodie, my hoodie. Her hair was tied up, her face bare, but it wasn't the lack of makeup that hit me in the gut. It was her eyes, dull, red-rimmed, like someone had switched her light off and left her in the dark. "What do you want?" she asked, voice flat. I had a speech prepared. Something about how I was sorry. How Claire didn't mean anything anymore. How Lila was different. Better. Real. But the speech evaporated the second I saw her looking at me like she was already gone. "Can I come in?" I asked. She laughed, dry, humorless. "Why?" "So you can tell me more half-truths in my living room." "Lila, please. Say it." I froze. "Say what?" "Say you don't love her anymore." The words tasted like rust on my tongue. "I don't." She barked out a laugh, but it cracked halfway through, turning into something closer to a sob. "You're a terrible liar." "Lila, don't," she said, stepping back like she needed the extra inches to keep from crumbling. I knew what this was. I did. I told myself I could handle it, that I could be your revenge, your rebound, your secret middle finger to her. But then you started showing up in the morning. You started leaving your things here. You started asking me how my day was. You made me think. She cut herself off, pressing the heel of her hand to her eyes. She didn't want me to see her break, but it was too late. I'd broken her long before that night. "I do care about you," I said, and I meant it. God, I meant it so much it made my chest ache. "But not enough," she whispered. "Never enough." "Lila." She dropped her hand and met my eyes. Hers were wet but steady now, like she'd given herself permission to drown a little if it meant she could finally swim away from me. "Do you want her back?" she asked. Simple. Direct. Brutal. I opened my mouth to say no. To tell her she was crazy. That Claire was poison. That she'd left scars I still scratched at in my sleep. But the lie stuck in my throat. And when I didn't answer, when I couldn't answer, she nodded like she'd just confirmed the secret she'd always known. "Get out," she said. "Lila, please. Get out." I did. I didn't beg. I didn't make a scene. I left my damn toothbrush in her bathroom cup because it felt too pathetic to ask for it back. I drove home in silence, my phone face down in the passenger seat like it was something rotting I couldn't bear to touch. A week passed. Then two. No word from Lila. No word from Claire either, which was its own kind of punishment. I kept waiting for someone to text, to scream at me, to tell me I'd ruined their life. But the universe stayed quiet. Maybe that was the point. Maybe silence was the worst revenge of all. One night, I found myself parked outside Lila's apartment building again. I didn't knock. I didn't go up. I just sat there, staring at the warm light spilling from her window, wondering if she was inside crying or laughing or, God forbid, learning how to forget me. I thought about calling. I typed "I'm sorry" into my phone at least 10 times. I never hit send. What good was sorry when it only showed up after you'd shattered the one good thing you didn't deserve? People say heartbreak feels like a clean break. It doesn't. It feels like rot. Like something you let fester until you can't cut it out without losing half of yourself. I'd meant to break Claire's heart. I'd meant to scratch my petty little itch. But all I did was cut myself open on the sharp edges of a girl I didn't deserve. And now she's gone, and I'm stuck here, a villain with no stage left, no audience left to clap, no one left to blame but myself.